Alright, let it get started. Back to back. Talk your barber shit. We back at it again. Had a wonderful guest yesterday. And now we back at it on this Monday. Getting it in again. I see everybody. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. You know what I always say? I'm gonna let Instagram do what it do. Start sending out the notification. Let everybody know. Talk Your Barber Shit is going live with another special guest. I mean, they all special because they come over here and they talk that shit. So we got the Lonely Barber, man, Ryan Rich. I mean, that name, that name by itself stands alone. Ryan Rich, he bought the business. But I'm really looking forward to sitting down having this conversation with this guy. He's in my neighborhood, Venice Beach, out here doing his thing. I mean, he's all over though. We're going to talk about barber mobility. If you haven't been to his page, go check out his page. It's called The Lonely Barber. He has this wonderful, nice setup business on the road. He took his barber business and put it on the road, and just the layout, the look, how he go out there and market his business, how he capitalize. And he has a great story. I definitely want to talk about it, share it. And it's all about motivation. It's all about growth. It's all about taking it to the next level. And this is what this man did. So like I said, I'm gonna let IG do what it do. And now we about to jump on. I'm about to send that notification to my boy Ryan, Lonely Barber, and we about to jump into these questions and talk about it. Talk what? Talk that barber shit. Whenever you ready, jump on in.
What is up, my boy?
What up, sir?
How's everything?
Everything is wonderful. How is your Monday going so far?
My Monday is going good. Got a couple of house calls in. I'm just rocking and rolling, man. So took a little break to talk some barber shit,
I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, of
You,
course, of course.
it's what's crazy, man. When I first moved over here, and I was going down Abbot Kinney, and I saw your van. It was one thing that I wanted to do prior before I got into barbering because I used to do clothes,
Right.
and I was like, how can I really get my clothes out there? Because back in the day, you throw your stuff in the trunk and you just
Yeah.
go post somewhere and set
Serve
up.
it out.
But I was
Yeah.
like, man, if I could turn my business of clothing into a mobility type establishment where people could come to my location or I can go to their location
Right.
and set up with a nice style setup, what would it be like? And then COVID hit, and I was still thinking like, how could man? But to hear your story, read everything that you did, especially during COVID, and then see where you at now, see how you flourishing. This is a great thing that I definitely want to share.
Oh.
So first off, Ryan Rich, how did you even get started in the industry per se? Like where did the barbering part come from?
Yeah,
Let's talk about that journey first, then talk about other things that you might have going on before you went full fledged with what you're doing now.
totally. Yeah. So my mom's a hairstylist and my father's a barber. And so I was kind of born into the shop atmosphere. I got to sit back and kind of watch how they ran their businesses and stuff like that, and how they did hair. And by the time that high school rolled around, obviously broke kid, working off allowance,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll shoot my shot with this. And I went to an alternative learning school. I went to a school called Indian Hills, which is famous for the bling ring. But I went to Indian Hills Continuation High School, and I had an art teacher named Lynn who was fantastic, and she kind of viewed everything as art. Everything can be an art form. And so if there was something that we were passionate about, she would allow it in her classroom. And um, me being the young shithead that I am, decided to start charging $10 to kids in high school inside of this art class. And Lynn was like, you can go ahead and do it. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make some money while I'm here at school. And it caught on. And other kids were like, hey, I like the look of this. So it's appealing, and the moms were excited because they're like, yo, my kid never wants to get a haircut, and
Right.
so if he's happy to go get his haircut with this kid, I'm down for that. And eventually, Lynn, of course, said, you got to find other avenues. You can't just continuously do this in my classroom. So my mom had a cool little studio underneath our house, the place that I grew up at. Like I said, she's a hairstylist as well, and she owned a salon in the Valley, but had a private studio at home where she could take some of her more elite clients and stuff like that and kind of work into that aspect of the industry. And so I said, hey, when you're not using this after school hours, would it be cool if I had some people come over, do some haircuts, and we called it the Backwoods Barbershop. And started lacing kids up. Little did the moms know we were taking all of that money and reinvesting it into marijuana, and we were just getting high shit down there, man. All day long, man. The state board's watching, dude. That was what was going on. So that was a lot of fun. That was a highlight moment, but I still wasn't fully invested in the idea of having hair be my path in life. I wanted to kind of blaze my own trail and see if I could create my own avenues. And so I actually went to photo school. I went to Brooks Institute of Photography up in Santa Barbara, and I wanted to be a photographer. And I worked in that industry for a while.
Yeah.
I had a great mentor, a dude named Neil Preston. I ended up leaving school through a mutual connection through a friend, and ended up working for this Rolling Stones photographer, a guy named Neil Preston. And fantastic dude. He still hates my guts to this day, dude. I left in the most childish manner that you could possibly leave under. We were doing a shoot for Fleetwood Mac, their reunion tour. It turned out that, Neil found out I knew how to style hair. And so I'm styling Mac Fleetwood's hair. And Mac's talking about Instagram. This is 2010, and Instagram had just kind of hit the market. And, in his eyes, he was halfway right. In his eyes, everybody was going to become a photographer, and everybody was going to be able to make a paycheck. And so there wouldn't be anything left over. And he's like, look, kid, you're wasting your time. You got to find something that you're passionate about, that you love, that's a creative outlet, but also allows you to make a solid living.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what should I do? He's like, well, you're really good at doing hair.
Yeah.
And so, and you're just fun to talk to. That was the main thing. Like, he was like, you're fun to talk to. And so I was like, okay. I went to Neil and I was like, look, man, this is my last day, dude. I quit. That was the last time I was on set, and when took a chair in my mom's salon after that. So that was kind of how I rolled into the industry of hair, and really became dedicated to it. I got licensed shortly after that, and yeah.
Was your mom like stoked when you finally said, "Hey, I'm joining the family business"?
Yeah, I think she was always proud, I think, of everything that I was doing, and I think that every parent has that little like moment where they're like put a smile on their face, like, he followed in my footsteps, and I definitely think she hasn't really told me that out loud yet, but I know that that's there. I know she's definitely happy, and she's very proud of what we've accomplished. So
It's crazy. Like a lot of people that I speak to, they always had something else prior to barbering, but barbering was always there. Like, and then we speak about being an artist, because I feel like that's what our industry is really about. It's like being a very out of the box to see something and be able to create it and see it in a whole different form than what other people see it. So when you're drawing or creating a portrait or whatever, you kind of transition all that into like cutting, and especially if you're doing designs or you coloring hair and stuff like that. You use some of that artistic side of you that bring it out. Are you a lefty?
I am not. I am right-handed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It might look like it in some of the videos, because sometimes I film reverse, and so I'm like, it flips it around.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, like, man, that's crazy to be able to take on another path of your life to, do photography and use that, or that used you to create another stepping stone for you to now, take that other back to bring you back to your true calling.
Yeah.
And bring you where you at now.
The universe is is wild like
Yeah,
that, man. Manifestation is very real, and I think that we don't have linear paths. We all have directions and branches that we can go off in and stuff. But the universe has this funny way of kind of putting us like exactly where we're supposed to be at.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
yeah, firm believer of that.
I have a lot of questions I want to ask you today, so I hope you're prepared. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready for
And let's.
it.
All right.
Shoot.
So, um, we talked about the beginning. I want to talk about 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Pandemic, man.
what was it at that particular moment when you said, with everything that's going on, this is what the path, this is the road, this is the direction I want to go to now, and keep my dream going? Because within that time, it was so crazy, and you really didn't know what, especially in our industry, the hair industry, because they were saying that we're not essential workers, we're not
Yeah.
something that really needs to be pushed forward. So for
Totally.
sit back and say, no, I offer something that everybody needs. And it also makes them feel happy to know that through everything that's going on, that they can still wake up, feel confident, comfortable, and know that, yeah, the world is going crazy right now, but I feel good about myself.
Totally.
How, how did you do that?
You know, So the pandemic was an interesting moment for me just because of the fact that I had just gone through a buyout and I was sort of had this freedom at that time to kind of take whichever avenue that I wanted to go to. There wasn't a heavy pressure on me like there was unfortunately on so many other people. It was like at that time I was in this transitionary state where I was in between shops and I knew I was going to do something big, and so the timing just kind of hit and everything was locked down. They're telling everybody they can't work. And the mobile idea was not mine. It was my mom's. It was something that my mom had brought up to me some years ago, and then reiterated on a fly fishing trip off the 395. I ran into this guy. This is early on in the lockdown, and he lived out of his Sprinter van. I was just fishing, and he's like, you can do anything with these vans. And I was like, man, maybe this is a way for me to do what I love, combine my passions, and bring what I do to the outdoors and have work, because as barbers we're kind of stuck in one spot, unless you're really running a house call game. And I was fortunate that I was running a lot of house calls even prior to the lockdown. It was in a position to work with some people that couldn't necessarily come into the barbershop and get a haircut because they would just get flooded with questions and stuff like that. And so I was already familiar with the traveling barber setup, and then this guy brought it up and my mom had brought it up, and I really trust my mom's opinion on things. And so that's kind of where the mobile came from. And the pandemic, such unfortunate time, man. Like I really hated that. I've always been into punk music. I've never really meshed well with the governmental authoritarian idea of like how I should live my life. So and also I'm a barber, and I'm sure you get this, and most of the barbers that end up tuning in will get this. We hear too much shit from too many different places to believe half the narratives that we get. And it wasn't that I didn't believe that there was, there's clearly a pandemic. People were dying. That was obvious. But to what causation, and to origins, I have questions to this day, man. And I don't trust them, man. Don't trust your government. If you can take one word of advice from any of this podcast, man, is meet everything that the government says with a grain of salt, dude. Just do the history on it, man. And it's sad. It's an unfortunate time. I know a lot of people did some really cool things and made some pivots, myself included. And I think a lot of people were really motivated to find alternative routes. But wow, what a weird time in history, man. We're gonna look back at that and we're just gonna go, we're really there for that, man. That was a changing moment,
It was. And I love that how you spoke about pivoting. And yeah, that would definitely pivot a lot of people in our nation overall. Like just everything, how we see things, how we do things. I've seen a lot more people go into the entrepreneur side and take it to a whole different level. Saw a business that couldn't sustain and had to collapse from high markets to lower markets. Uh, Especially like some of our barber stations, or our barber shops,
Yeah.
wasn't able to move forward because how they was moving before and how they was capitalizing and trying to structure it. I wasn't doing it the correct way to move through this lineage and what we was going through. Um, for you and having a mobile station, I know it's probably looked upon sometimes as a downplay to our system sometimes, because you hear a lot of barbers now that have barber shops like, oh, that's not gonna work, that's not gonna keep moving forward. People now are going into their own space, and you hear mockery on that. Nobody knows you there. How can you sustain or make a career path for you to be in a space that doesn't show a barber sign or say barber on it? Uh,
Yeah.
but for you, I mean, you can move. You can move anywhere, and you have a symbol that says who you are. So
Totally.
people see that and go, "Oh, oh man, I can probably get him to come where I'm at." Or if I have a large event, maybe he want to come here and do something like that.
Totally.
Talk about talk about the beginning of this journey, maybe your ups and downs, and then talk about like what you have gained from it and what you feel like it's possible for other barbers that are thinking about this and don't know how to go by doing it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say first and foremost, it's really important for us as barbers to keep the mindset, like you said, entrepreneurship, right? It's like every barber, no matter what, even if you're a commission shop or whatever, like you're still an entrepreneur, you're still running your own business. And like, it's really important, I think, for everybody to know all the tools at their disposal through entrepreneurship, how to market yourself, how to create material, how to build a website, how to, there's a lot of different hats that we as barbers have to wear. And to that point, yeah, it's fantastic that I get to drive around. I got a big billboard on the side of the van. That's all really cool. But I think, the main area, I had a bit of an advantage. This is kind of the late stages of the business career now. Like the culmination of things I think that I've learned throughout the industry and throughout business just over the years. Like I said, I had just gone through a buyout. And so I was transitioning from a brick and mortar environment,
Okay.
sort of releasing myself from that and moving into a new direction. I knew that that was going to be private studio and house call centric before the concept of the van even really became a thing. Like I knew that my life was already heading that way.
Yeah.
But I think that the main avenues, especially, if a young barber's getting in the game, they're like, yo, you know what? Like, I really want to build a clientele that's not so focused on just the chairs here and allowing the brand's popularity to benefit me. You have to be an asset no matter what shop you're in. The shop's never going to feed you enough clientele for you to, prosper in a way that you really want to. It's really important that you hit the ground running. And so, I think now with the power of social media, that's a really good way to help yourself grow. But social media has also become more difficult. And I think the main thing that I would say on social media is a lot of barbers out there focus specifically on showcasing their work, which is fantastic, but you set this presentation in people's minds that this is exactly what I'm going to get. And hair is tangible, right? Everybody has different types of hair qualities, and oftentimes we're posting our best work, our work with the most longevity to it. Like we could take the most time on it.
Yeah.
So, my approach has always been, and this has worked for me at every shop, is I don't want to sell people a product. I want to sell them a vibe. I want them to feel like they're not buying into the service itself, but they're buying into the culture, And I think that that's important, to showcase your work and be like, hey, you know what? I'm talented. This is what I do. Like, I'm clearly good at it. But also to show that, like, what you're inviting people into isn't necessarily just the aesthetics, but also, just the lifestyle of everything all encompassing, from fashion to, whatever the vibe might be. You know, for me, it's off-roading. Like I love off-roading. I've always loved off-road vehicles. I love the adventure outdoors culture. It's a smaller market for sure, but it's definitely a very steady market, and it's a market of people that are really connected to other people that have a like-minded mindset. And so, you know, and also on the urban side of things, you know, style, fashion, you know, what's trending. But I think that that's really important to know. Another thing is how to build a catchy website, you know, because people will get a referral from a friend, because word of mouth is always going to be the biggest avenue for us as barbers in our industry. You could show people 1,000,001 photos, but, you know, the second that someone's got a crispy haircut and they say, hey, you know, my barber is so-and-so, the first thing that they're going to do is look them up either on IG or they're going to look them up on their website direct. So having a very well curated website that's aesthetically pleasing and like also has all the information and details that they might need is something really important, I think, to young barbers. That's kind of overlooked oftentimes. And flexibility, man. You know, not everything is so cut and dry. Like, I think we as barbers have a tendency to, especially in the young parts of our career where we are working behind a chair and we're kind of piggybacking off of that shop's clientele, to just say, you know, well, I don't necessarily need to carry the torch. And so by really establishing yourself as a dominant force in that shop, that's only going to feed you and further your career longevity. Yeah.
I know, like we were speaking, what you definitely sharing is um, our unity as
Yeah.
uh, said, you know, we have our own inner thoughts and our own inner feelings about the way the barbering should be.
So,
And some of our like elders still feel like, you know, barbering started in the shop and it's
yeah.
more than that. And now that with social media and the experience and what they're sharing is that we can do whatever we want in this industry. But sometimes you hear voices that say, um, if you try to get a suite, this is what you need to do. But you can't do it until you work out a shop first.
Yeah.
You should go to.
I don't necessarily. I know the OGs say this and stuff, but you know, I struggle with it. Like, I consider myself a hairstylist. Like, a lot
Yeah.
of people are like, you know, I'm a barber, you know, and I'm like, man, look, I saw what happened, you know, in the '60s when the Beatles hit the scene and long hair came into play, and you know, the death of creativity is being stubborn, right? And so, you know, for me, I've had that conversation a lot with people that are like, you know, old school barber types. They're like, look, man, like, you know, it's about the shop. It's about the. I'm like, dude, I'll do long hair. I do short hair. I focus on my sizzle work because that's where I feel that the value in a haircut is, you know, is really the ability to manipulate your scissors. And I think, you know, a lot of old school barbers also are like, you know, hey, the scissors are secondary to the clippers. And I'm
Right.
like, these haircuts change. Like, we've got a movie that's about to hit the scene right now that's about these bikers. You seen
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
thing coming up?
Uh-huh.
Everybody's gonna want to slick back. Get ready for that shit, man. It's everybody's gonna want their shit slicked back. You know, it just is one of those things, man. The tapers and the fades, they're never going anywhere.
Correct.
But I think that, you know, in order to hit a price point that's really going to sustain your lifestyle and allow you to kind of connect with people on a deeper level, as well as client retention, you know, like when it comes to fades, there's a lot of options. There's so many great cutters that are able to throw down a fade because the guard work is kind of universal.
Yeah.
You know, there is some style and aesthetics to how you do it, but, you know, the ability to throw down a clean fade with clippers, it's not really what holds that extra charge for
Right.
you. It's that ability
Yeah.
to manipulate your scissors and really be knowledgeable with creating custom angles or creating specific types of texture in hairs, which is something that a lot of barbers go, this is hairstylist type things, you know? And I think, you know, for me, the word barber was important to me because you know, I really wanted to, at the time, to do straight razors. I thought that they were the coolest thing on the planet Earth. I was like, the ability to shave someone's face with something that could kill them is just awesome, you know. So, adrenaline junkie style, you know. And so, that was where my mindset was at with the licensing, you know. But I think, you know, the difference between barber and hairstylist is just one learns nails and we learn straight razors. And, you know, it's really important to keep that in mind that, like, you know, don't limit your ability to always be learning, always be trying out new things. If there's something out there that scares somebody, you know, because these are how these guys are falling into these ruts, right? Like, it's a fear of, like, you know, no man wants to admit, like, oh, you know, that intimidates me. Like, for me, it's hair color. Like, dude, I'm scared shitless of hair color. I don't do any hair color. I've tried in the past to learn it. I've experimented with it. But I'm no chemist, and I just know that that's not my avenue. Yeah. And so I feel blessed that I took my shot at it, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, it just scares the shit out of me, man. And so I avoid it. And I think through that understanding, you can kind of move other directions and do other things that are niche, but don't be one of those people that, you know, says, oh, I'm a barber and therefore being a barber means this. At the end of the day, dude, we're all fucking hairstylists, bro, and we're in this business to, first and foremost, make people happy. Like, if you're chasing dollars, it's never going to work out because I've seen it a million and one times. These dudes are like, you know, they want to be flashy on the gram, but they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. Your client's going to know whether you love and care about them or not. Correct. And, you know, if you get into this business, make sure that the people really feel that, hey, I'm first and foremost here for you, your mental health, your outlet. I want you to be able to connect on a deeper level and get those things off your chest. And if you're one of those guys that just wants to sit there quietly in the chair, that's fine too, you know. But at that point, the haircut takes over and it really becomes all about that. But there's a weird thing that happens, man. Money just starts to flow in. Right. Once you really take that different approach. People, they don't want to leave you, you know? Yeah.
And I like that you spoke about communication, especially understanding your environment. Because when we deal with our customers and stuff like that, the cut can be amazing, but if you're not being able to connect with the person that your customer or your client that you're dealing with, that can shift a lot of things. Because sometimes people just, not all the time, you know, some people just want to come in and just relax and fall asleep. But some people love the verbiage being shared and the topics and stuff. So you got to have that part, because that will take you a little bit further than just a natural fade. So totally. Yeah. Community and culture based. I feel like you demonstrate that a lot with it doing. The name, the Lonely Barber. Let's talk about that. But as far as what that represents for you as a community and as a culture, what was when you thought of that name that you said, this is what I want to share with the world per se, but within my community and with my culture?
Totally. Another thing that I can't take credit for, dude, I was dubbed the Lonely Barber. So I have a client named Brett Drumler, who's an amazing human being. He's the vice president of Republic Records and just an awesome guy. And he's really done it in life. And so I respect his opinions on stuff. And so we've got a close relationship. And I was going through a breakup. And he came in and he's like, how you holding up, big guy? You all good? And I'm like, I'm good, bro. I promise you, I'm solid. Like, this was supposed to happen. And he goes, are you lonely? And I said, bro, I'm never lonely. I'm never lonely. And he laughs and he says, you know what? You should get that tattooed on your forehead since you already got all those face tattoos. And I said, bet. So I went and I actually have Never Lonely tattooed on my forehead right here. And I called him up all excited, like, I bet you thought I wouldn't do that. Crazy ass white boy, dude. Fucking just face tats for days, whatever. Yeah. And he, you know, he's like, dude, you're the Lonely Barber. And that was it, dude. That was it. Everybody started kind of calling me Lonely after that. And so when it came time to transition into this, it kind of went from a nickname to a business title. And that's where I think like my half of it with the experience of that name was like, I'm going to adopt this as like a permanent thing, make it part of our branding. Because it's a single chair inside of a van, right? And I thought, okay, that fits kind of well. Barber on the road, sort of traveling, like meeting people on the way and stuff. And so the Lonely Barber. And then I think, as a brand, my ambition was also not to like isolate it to where the Lonely Barber had to be a character. So like the Lonely Barber really is the overall all-encompassing avenues, whether it be us doing apparel or product, the van in particularly. I guess I wanted something that was, clearly synonymous with a logo and not so synonymous with a face. And that's where the eye came from.
Okay.
Was something that was really catching and really grabbing and would get people to hyper focus or sear that into their mind that, okay, this is why we always show the logo with the eye. It's always the Lonely Barber with the eye.
Correct.
Hardly ever separated. Although I have people that ask for apparel that are like, can I get just the eye? Like, I don't really want the look. Like, I like just the look of the stuff, but you're not really my barber. I just follow you on Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, I'll make you some shit, man.
Got to get the whole thing. No, we can't separate. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
You got to be my billboard no matter what.
Yeah. Dude, that's it, man. It's like, guerrilla marketing, man.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll end up touching on that shortly, but I've got some good tricks and tips on guerrilla marketing, man.
Let me ask you this. What inspires you to keep moving forward within this industry? Maybe with, just past history of what you have seen back then that made you feel joy and happiness. And I say you don't feel that now or in the part where you at with it your life.
Yeah.
But what keeps you still motivated to get up every day, jump in your van, go wherever you want to go, post wherever you want to post, and let the world know, hey, the Lonely Barber is here. And when they see your chair, like it is just opening in that van door makes you feel that joy. What keeps that going?
Dude, I struggle with it sometimes as well. Like, I think every barber struggles with fatigue at some point, right? Like, especially if you do it for long enough. And so I love this question, by the way. I think for me, it's the people. I don't focus so much on like the art. I feel very blessed that I get to be a part of an art form that people really appreciate and enjoy. But I think that the connectivity with people is what motivates me to keep coming back and keep doing that. The friendships that we create behind the chair. I think that, my real ambition is to sort of, like we were touching on a little bit before, is break those standardizations of barbering that like this has to have in the shop or that there's rules associated with it. It's like any other business, we can take it to that next level and we can show people that there's a different way to do all these things. And I would really love, to get to a point where people are looking at it like, hey man, you know what? Like, I'm not just a hair cutter. I'm therapist light, like I'm doing this so that I can spread a little bit of what I am and what I've learned over the years with other people who might be either trying to learn as well or even maybe just suffering. Like there's a lot of dudes out there that don't have mental health outlets and don't want to go to the therapist, and so they come to the barbershop, and that's where they get the stuff off of their chest that they're struggling with, they're going through, the things they're really happy about, the highs and the lows. But I think if I could leave one mark on this industry, it would be to really change the perception of what the goal is within hair. Hair is the vessel to allow someone to sit in the chair and get that connection with them. And the most important part of it is, leaving that lasting mark, so 40, 50 years later, even if someone's moved away, they live in another country or it's their kids, whatever, they go, man, Pops had a really cool barber back in the day. This guy was part of our family, And so that motivates me a lot. I also think that, just barbering comes in waves of popularity, right? Like, you have certain haircuts that hit the market, and it's like, okay, this all of a sudden the barbershop's really cool, it's really hot. And then all of a sudden, it starts to kind of like just be that regular neighborhood spot again. And I'd like to keep it where um, people are learning how to keep this business that we are in, this industry that we're in, not as just a thing that's on a hype train, but like a real necessity at all times, you know? Yeah.
It's crazy because one of my next questions for you, I wanted to ask you, like, what do you see or want to see more of as the future part, start progressing more and more with our bar? Because barbering has definitely, especially with social media, took a whole upside down because
Totally.
people looked at barbering like, oh, that's nice. You do hair.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a barber shop, but it wasn't like the way it is now. Like you a superstar now when you
Yeah.
say barber, like, oh, who you cut? Like where you cutting that and stuff like that. So
Totally.
uh, both angles of that, like what do you love more about the future part of the barbering moving forward, and what would you like to see maybe change a little bit more within the future part of barbering?
I mean, I definitely think that it's important to have like an air of confidence about you, to treat yourself like a superstar. Like, I mean, people, um, but also, the social media stuff has been great for barbers in order to market themselves, but at the same time, it's got like this flip side where like it isn't the client is the focus. Like we're not rock stars, we're always the people that are in a posse. I was just having a conversation with this about with my buddy Kevin. Shout out to Brothers Keepers Brothers Keepers. Kevin is G Easy's barber, and we were talking about how we're always associated and attached to these posses and influential people, and like sometimes it goes to people's heads, and they're like, "Oh, I'm this big star," and it's like, no, man, like you're just a dude who touches other dudes for a living, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're a therapy outlet for them to get this shit off the chest. So, important to be humble, right? But at the same time, treat yourself like you are a rock star internally. Take care of your mental and know you're a blessing, and that you're the only one that can do what you do like you do. And yeah, I call it the thumbprint mentality, right? Because we're all like a fingerprint, man.
Yeah.
We're all unique, and so keeping that in mind, but also like the thumb's only as strong as the hell hand, you know,
I love
right?
that. I'm about to
Yeah.
that way. I always like to ask my guests this: if you were able to, and you was able to open up a door that will lead you back to that 15-year-old, 60-year-old of yourself, and you could advise them or share everything you got going on now, would you share it to boost maybe that speed of that person at that time to get there a little bit faster? Or would you allow that 16-year-old, 15-year-old to still be who you were at that particular time to reach who you are now?
Yeah, I don't think I would do it any differently. I get asked that question often just because it comes up with the tattoos. They're like, older people, you think you're gonna regret that? And I'm like, man, I don't. I think there's only two things in my life that I would really go back in time and change, and you know, definitely the way that I got here is not one of them.
Yeah.
I would definitely change getting my initials tattooed on my shoulder blades, bro. I think that shit's corny as hell. But we can cover it up at some point. And
Remember them days, everybody would get like their shoe and put it in the Superman symbol or
exactly, yeah, it's just the corny. Like when you're 18, you're like, "What's my first tattoo gonna be?" And I'm like, make it look like the Rockstar Energy Drink logo with two R's facing out. I'm like, that shit is so corny, man. I wish I could change that. But I don't think I would. I don't think I would, man. I think I'd tell them, hey, you're gonna have highs and lows, man, and sometimes it's gonna seem really dark, but even when it does seem really dark, it's only because you need to learn these lessons so that you can appreciate the light when the good stuff starts happening. And without that knowledge, you can't really appreciate it as deeply as you would, had you not had to struggle. And so, um, I think that those are important lessons. Yeah.
My next question for you is personal growth. Do you feel like more personal growth has happened within your environment of being a barber, or you just think life in general helps you keep growing to be at this particular moment? And are you enjoying everything with your personal growth? Is it showing you more leverage to open more possibility doors, kicking more doors? Like, where you feel right now with everything as far as your personal growth?
I mean, I'm really happy with the direction of personal growth. I still every day, try to keep the positive mental attitude and just keep the ball rolling, no matter what that day might hold. I definitely think I grow equally within the barbering world itself, as well as just the outside and external forces that come into our daily lives. And I think I had the advantage of kind of learning some of the hard lessons before becoming a barber and translating those into an avenue of sympathy for other people that might be struggling with similar situations. And so I think I definitely still continue to learn from both of them. Um, but barbering, is great because it's an open floor plan to discuss everything. And there really can't be any bars held. It's just, if it's relatable and you have a similar circumstance, you've got to kind of give that to them. And I think that um, that's led to an avenue of openness and vulnerability where, like, younger me would have been like, nah, fuck that, like, I don't do that shit, and it's not the truth, man. We all struggle with stuff, and I think now when someone comes in with something tough, it's a lot easier to open up, and that's directly related to the barber chair for sure. Yeah.
Um, are you, how can I say this in a way, seem like a cocky form? All right, to be in this industry, do you want to have that industry recognition to be on a certain scale? Like, hey, the Lonely Barber is here. I did it from this point, and I'm here 10 years strong, or maybe 15. Like, what is that? What is that layer that you're looking for within this industry? The step, your recognition.
Dude, I mean, I think it's definitely important to me. Longevity is important to me. I think the recognition is important. We all want to flex and we all want to say when it's time for us to go that, hey, you know what, I was part of these changes or whatever, or I led a movement to go a new direction. And I think that that's important to me for sure. Not oh shit, I dropped my vape. Not from a direction of you know like I want this to be my legacy type of thing, but I want to know that people saw the stuff that we were doing and felt inspired to do something a different way, a way that maybe they didn't know how to do previously. And not from a standpoint of like, I want to flex, but like, it's nice to be remembered, man. It's nice to be that guy that people go,
Yeah.
oh, dude, you're doing this thing. Like, that's cool, man. You seen the Lonely Barber? Like, he does it too. And they're like, oh, shit, I got that, So, um, you know, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm cocky, bro. I like that shit, man. And I want it to be 20 years down the
Yeah.
line and they'd be like, oh, man, like these mobile shops are everywhere, man. Like, fuck, did you see the first one, though? I mean, not the first one, but, I think we fall in a weird space. And I think a lot of people would agree. We weren't the first to do this.
Mhm.
There's been and has been many mobile barbershops leading throughout history. But I think that, up until that time, they were kind of uh, and this isn't a dig at anybody out there. It was just they're different, you know. They're kind of built like limousines. They're
Yeah.
sort of open floor plan. They don't really feel like a structure inside of them, you know. They're like a studio on wheels, and it was really important to me to mesh, you know, aesthetic and design, and you know, create an atmosphere that when people got inside of it, they forget they're in a van, you know. And I think we were the first ones to kind of bring that
Yeah.
avenue to market.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that, you know, I every day, dude, almost every day I get a message from somebody that's just like, you know, hey dude, like you've inspired me. I want to build a van. Like, can you tell me how to do it? And I always get super sad because I'm like, dude, this is thousands of components. Me explaining this to you is like a master class. Like I'd have to record a whole video to do it. But like I always tell them,
You
you
ever,
know, figure out the start,
yeah.
and then once you're worried about a specific area of the thing, like how do I integrate solar into a
Yeah.
van?
Yeah.
Then I can kind of be a little more helpful,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah,
You ever thought about creating a platform where it shows like, you know, certain areas of how you can go by doing this? Like,
totally. I definitely have thought about doing one of those like masterclass
yeah.
um, pre-recorded programs where people, you know, paying and they get access to your archive of different things. But so far I haven't pulled the trigger on it. It might be something that I might do one day. Um, it's really hard to consolidate and write down all of those different thoughts and avenues and take all that. It really is time consuming. And like I know people that have done it, like Deluxe over at Barbering Masterclass or whatever his thing is called, you know, and he's got a great platform. He, you know, Barber Josh
Mm.
OP is another great dude that's really, you know, on the education front, done a great job selling his archive of different educational videos as well as business videos. So I don't think that I would do it now. I still think I got a lot of learning to do.
Yeah.
And it's also just really time consuming, man. It seems like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, is it a collaboration that you're looking forward to or you want to make happen? Like you, is it like a process of some networking that you want to take, you know, the Lonely Barber into like a whole nother atmosphere? Is something like that? What if you could share? You know, I know.
Yeah, no, dude. The next frontier, I think, is really bringing it to people's households. You know, we've got a director named JP Style who's working on a show with us, a producer named Greg Utanis who's fantastic, did Game of Thrones and House of Dragons and some really big hits in the arena of scripted television. And so, you know, to now move that career path over into the unscripted or semi-scripted, almost documentarian style of show. I think that that's the next frontier for me is really trying to and look, it's a hard process. I mean, it's something that we've been working on for like the last 2 years, dude. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. And so, you know, at this point we're fortunate enough to be able to make a pilot episode as well as a sizzle reel, which we can pitch to networks after that. And if it gets picked up, then we're really on to something. But um, you know, I think that's the next frontier is the ability to bring that storytelling to people's households in a cinematic way that's entertaining and has longevity and really tell cool stories. That would be my next real goal.
Creative mode, and I know this is probably something you already done or whatever, but maybe this like a road trip to like all different areas, and then you guys just stop there, while out, have fun, but then y'all cutting here at the same time. That'd be
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, that'd be
I love
great.
that. Yeah, you're definitely onto it, and that's the way of the universe, right? It's like this hive mind collective of like, you know, you're right on the money with what you're talking about. Like that's exactly what the premise pretty much is, and so you know, how it plays out exactly is sort of yet to be seen until it's like actually done and finished. We have a collective episode, but I think that you know, in the essence of a travel show is really the heart and soul of what we're trying to accomplish, is something that, you know, gives people that entertainment aspect of things through the idea of getting to learn a city as we travel through it as a barber, the barber's connection to that city, and less about the barber, more about, you know, meeting with cool, interesting people and saying, hey, this is so-and-so. He does this really awesome thing. This is why it's important to the city, and learn a little bit about them. So we'll see, man. We'll see. It's either going to be really popular or it's never going to ever be seen, and that only time will tell. And
it's gonna be seen. It's gonna be seen.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank
uh,
you.
like when I first started, and I was telling you like my journey before I even transitioned into barbering was doing clothes and stuff. And I think your website, I love your website. It's so beautiful. It's captivating. Like as soon as you go to your website, it's like you feel like you draw into each photo and
Thank you, bro.
see the products that you're working on and stuff of the stuff that you put out. Within your location, do you have some of your products that you sell on your wherever you stop at, or?
Totally. If I have them, I do for sure. Like Brothers Keeper, we have product for people to sample behind the back bar, but we always direct people over to the website to make purchases. When it comes to the clothing stuff that we do from time to time, I'll bring a little clothing rack with me. I'll hang some shirts out, and
I'm gonna have to come.
you know, people kind of catch it on site. I had an online store for a little bit, but the overhead costs compared to shipping costs and all that stuff, it was hard to do direct to consumer in the way of Lonely Barber merch, because it really was at the end of the day merchandise, you know? And so I'm thinking about doing apparel again, or collective product even, but do it in a way that's sort of separate. It's its own entity, you know, use this as a springboard platform to kind of hype like, hey, this is cool, but like at the same time, not necessarily Lonely Barber specific stuff, you know? Yeah.
And then for me, like I knew some of the hot pockets where to go and where to set up. So majority of like when I was coming up, Melrose was the spot to
Totally.
go. Just set out there, put your stuff up, and make it work. When you started with the van, how did you determine where area you felt like was going to be lucrative and it was going to give you a lot of exposure?
So my selection was Abbot Kinney.
Okay.
And to this day, it's on Abbot Kinney. And it's funny, you know, I knew my goal was to bring my already built-in original clientele from my shop in Venice over to this entity. So Venice was where it was going to be, just because that was where my clientele was built into from the brick and mortar.
Okay.
And Abbot Kinney was selected not because of the popularity of the street, like that just happened to be like a cool byproduct of it, but really it was the shortness of the street. Like, how do I, without knowing specifically where I'm going to be parking at, say, hey, I'm going to be on this street, come find me. Right. It's got to be a really short street, you know? Yeah. And so that was how I selected that street. And it was originally, and still is currently at this moment, I had a surgery and I dropped it down from 4 days back to 3 days on the block cutting. So I'm on Abbot Kinney Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And Thursday, Sunday, Monday, I run house calls. Oh. And so, that was like, how do I split up the time where 3 days a week people can come and find me, they can get that reduced price tag, participate in the van without feeling like, oh shit, I got to drop a ton of money in order to be a participant, while at the same time hitting the other clientele that wants a more direct service, is maybe investing in their privacy a little bit more, and willing to kind of come out the pocket with, hey, I'd rather have my privacy or my shower directly ahead, but I know that that's a slightly more expensive service, and yeah, I mean, so far the formula's worked. That was where Abbot Kinney came into, though, man. Melrose was a thought, I thought maybe on Thursdays I was like, I'll cut down a house call day and I'll go hang out on Melrose, just because I love the culture of Melrose. I used to hang out on Melrose and Fairfax quite a bit back in the day. like I said, was really into punk music, and you know, you had all kinds of record stores back in the day. It was sort of this hub of punk rock, and so spent a lot of time down there buying records and CDs and patches and so on and so forth, looking like a total nerd. And I thought Melrose would be kind of cool. But then, you know, there's also a few barbershops on Melrose as well, and I try to be in areas that aren't competitive, you know.
I was just about to ask you that. Like, what would you feel, or how would you feel if one day you drove, you was about to park your van on Advocacy, and there's another van
I would
barber, like,
I would be less upset about it than I think people would like actually think I would be. You know, it's like, um, it, I've always had the philosophy in business that like, you know, working. I call it the rap game in the '90s, dude, which is like the direct comparison. Right in the '90s, everybody was like, "Nah, fuck that. I don't want to collaborate with this
yeah,
person. I'm gonna do my own thing." And then at some point, we realized, you know, hey, if we all work together, we can get a lot more views and streams, right? And so barbershops are kind of like the rap game in the '90s, man. They're like, "Oh, he's down the street, man. Fuck those guys," you know. When it's like, dude, the city's got, you couldn't cut every head in the city in a month that exists. So, you know, if somebody pulled up on Abbot Kenny, especially being a single chair barbershop, I'd kind of be like, yo, you know, that's dope. Depending on the aesthetic of it, because also Abbott's a weird street.
yeah,
There's a lot of people that pull up, and when people do pull up, the city tends to lash back out at us a little bit. So we get into some drama. There's people that like us there and people that don't like us in the vans. And, you know, I'm really blessed that, like, I feel like what we've created meshes really well with the culture of the street. And so the street's been really endearing to me in particular. Like, they've kind of decided to back it because they're like, the Lonely Barber's not going away, but he also kind of fits in here.
yeah.
Sometimes people will show up and their shit just, like, no hate, but their shit looks trash, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, like, you're on GQ's coolest street in America and you're in a hoopty Winnebago with, like, you know, a fucking rack thrown in and it just looks terrible, bro. Of course they're going to start cracking down on all of us now. Now you fucked up my money, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think I'd ever lash out at somebody about it, but I definitely think that it's cool that we kind of hold that title of exclusivity. I don't know how the Block would feel about it, to be honest. The Block would probably come after them harder than I would.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's funny. Before I actually lived over here, I used to work at Lionsgate off of Colorado.
Right.
So, and I started there at the end of '08, maybe going into '09. Abbot Kinney wasn't even thought of at that point. I don't think
No.
so. Yeah. So there,
No, there wasn't.
there's
Let me tell you an old school Abbot Kinney story, dude. Okay. So I had a friend named Ryan in high school, another Ryan. And he was from Venice, but he had moved to Palisades. His family had come into some money. They moved from Venice to Palisades, right? And he calls me up one day and he's like, listen, dude, I bought this Ford Ranger. Keeps breaking down on me. The thing's a piece of shit. It's got to go. And I'm like, I live in the canyons. I'm thinking, oh, God, this dude's going to have me push this truck off the side of a cliff or something. And he's like, no, nothing like that, nothing like that. I just need you to take a drive down and call your mom and tell her that we're going to need to get picked up.
Yeah.
And so we drive down to Venice Beach. We go to the boardwalk. He's very adamant. He's like, we need to buy a pipe. And I also had to bring my ID. I got to backtrack a little bit. He was like, Ryan, you need to bring your ID that says Agora Hills with you. And I'm like, okay. So we buy a pipe, and we go park on what is now Abbot Kenny, but was at the time called West Washington Way.
Oh.
So it wasn't even called Abbot Kenny yet. But there was Abbott's Habit coffee shop there. And kind of right by where the Adidas store is now, we parked this shitty Ford Ranger. I've got my pipe with me and my receipt, my ID and stuff. And he goes, don't close the door all the way. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has run out on this. So, you know, we'll keep him anonymous. But anyway, I don't think I'm incriminating myself with this because I really, right and truly didn't know what was actually happening until it happened. He goes, Ryan, don't close the door all the way. Okay. So I leave it kind of cracked when I close it, and he leaves the keys in the ignition. And Abbott Kinney back then was a street where drugs were sold, prostitution was happening. You know, it was kind of run down and dingy. You didn't want to be there after the sunset, you know. And we run into this coffee shop, get a cup of pour over coffee, and in the 0.5 seconds it takes to pour a cup of coffee, we come back out and this truck is gone. And Ryan calls the cops up. The cops come down, yeah, and they're looking at me and him. And they're like, "What are you guys doing over here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm from Agora. Here's my ID. I just came down to buy a bong, and like, you know, we got lost." Dude, the whole thing played out perfectly, bro. And these dudes were like, "Let us drive you to the boardwalk so you're not stuck here. We're going to take you over." Because, dude, that area was sketchy. Man. And Abbott Kinney had a history of when cars got stolen from there, they would not be found again. And that's because we would find out later that right when you go through Venice Boulevard, on the left-hand side right there is a little compound owned by a gentleman named Sven, who happens to be a client now, but he's got what looks like 3 buildings in this compound. He bought it at auction, but actually it's 2 of the buildings have motor lifts inside of them. They just look like apartments from the outside. It was a straight chop shop. And so they would grab your car and flip it like that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Crazy. It's funny because I look at like certain documentaries that, you know, talk about inner city areas and stuff like that. And when they brought up Venice, and I was like, dang, Venice used to really be like that. Because, you know, I'm from South Central, Inglewood, and stuff like that. So, but I didn't know Venice got it in like the way they got it in. So, yeah. Is it ringing on your end when I get phone calls, or is it not able to? Sometimes it would like blur, but then I didn't do nothing on that part. Okay, all right. I wasn't sure. I usually when I do these, I shut down the call. Like I make it where people can't call me. But right now, I'm connected to basically the 5G. Yeah. And so I didn't put it on Do Not Disturb or whatever. I don't know if that does Do Not Disturb affect it. I can't hear you now. Because we'll lose the stream. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. There you go. Yeah. Right. But man, I mean, this was awesome. I think we covered everything. It's like if you can, I would love to see the spot if you could turn the angle. Oh yeah. Yeah. Let me pop this thing off of here real quick. So yeah, this is the inside cutting area. This is our cabinetry. Yeah. Over here, we got everything kind of stored inside. Let me flip this thing around real quick. How do I? There we go. Yeah, so usually there's little knickknacks and stuff. I put all that stuff away, you know, cabinetry, cutting station, the whole 9. Outside, we've got generator case, spare necessities, wow. Spare gas for the generator if we need to. I think and stuff for access for the roof. I can see why they love that eye now. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, they definitely. It's so funny, bro. I'll be like driving down the road and I'll get like a call and they're just like, dude, like I don't even need a haircut. I love your logo. I'm like, thanks, man. That's cool. But that's amazing because you know, like you were saying earlier, we was talking. You don't really see a lot of barber bed structure like that, like when it's an air sink where you can wash the hair. It's usually just the chair, a little area where they can sit, and that's pretty much it. You have real essential layout, like you can do everything in there. Oh yeah, I wanted it to be fully fun. Like it was important because the state board had a standard that they had kind of like preset forth saying like, hey, you got to have a 100-gallon water tank, you got to have a shampoo bowl, you got to have push to start generator, like little things. And so I wanted to make sure I hit all the marks so that I could get it fully legally licensed. But I also wanted to make sure that I was,
Oh,
fully functioning just for clients. Yeah, it
you.
really has to feel like that.
I've never thought about that. You just brought something to my attention. So when you have an establishment like that, you still got to get it registered a certain way. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Oh yeah,
I'm just
yeah. The Department of Consumer Affairs regulates mobile businesses as well.
okay.
And they have a license that is set forth for a mobile unit license. And I think, the inspection's a little bit more stringent than it would be if you created a brick and mortar, because obviously the ability to find the thing later in the future after the initial inspection is going to be tougher.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people that want to, do it the other way without having to kind of go through the process. But I don't recommend doing it. You definitely can get away with it for a long time, but they'll start to, if they ambitiously want to find you, they'll start to come after you.
Right.
Especially if your goal is to grow into a brand that's recognizable, that people can really connect with. In order to get that popularity, you have to do it the right way.
Correct.
Yeah.
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 I'm glad that you shared that, because I was just thinking, I don't know why I thought it like that. I just thought, like, long as you had your license, you just go get gut out of the van and then just take it on the road. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah. When we go to other states, I usually have it where I will have a brand partner prepay the activities that we're going to be doing. And that kind of bypasses some of the licensing things, because if you're not charging to cut hair, you don't need a license.
okay.
And so, um, you know, people have tried to loophole it by saying, well, I don't charge for cuts, I take donations.
Yeah.
Or, they will do what I do, which is basically get a brand partner. We did events in Arizona, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, whatever. And we'll have a company kind of team up with us, bring free haircuts to an event or location, and that bypasses any of the state's requirements for licensing to do hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, because I was thinking, like, as long as you're in California and you have a California license, you should be okay.
You
But, like,
swear, yeah.
okay.
California is all good all the time to charge for it. But this is mainly just with the idea of traveling around the country and doing it.
Anywhere.
The best way to do that would be to say kind of like what Vic Blends does, hey, I'm doing free haircuts, but on the back end, I'm using this to gain social media attention and draw revenue through that stream, or, give people something exciting, fire up a GoFundMe, so on and so forth. That way you're not directly taking payments for the services, and therefore you don't have to be licensed by the state in order to do those services. The only time the state gets to involve themselves directly is when there's actual business being conducted, and that's because of tax codes. So, no money, no problems,
Right.
or just alternative ways, unregulated ways. Yeah, I hear a little gnat. Getting attacked by a gnat right now. Alternative ways to generate the revenue, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, this is something I was definitely looking forward to. Like I said, I always seen your van. I was like, man, I need to go out there and really chop it up with them and see if I can get them on my platform, because I really want to hear the journey and stuff. And
Dude, so stoked to be here, man. When you asked, I was like, dude, I'd love to be. I've never gotten to be on a barbering podcast. I've been on a lot of other types of podcasts, never one about barbering, and I always thought, man, that would be really cool to just actually dive in. That's not true, actually. I did do a barber podcast once before, but it was very much specific to the business end of things, and not so much there was an outlying formula of, we're going to talk about this, and let's not talk about this. And I was like, okay. But yeah. Oh, yeah. Chris wants to see the van again. So, yeah, here, let me flip this back around. So this is the inside of the doorway, and then back cutting station, Chris, and to walk it back, it gives you the small camera on the stream, so it's like fun. You got to kind of double how far you walk
Yeah,
back. But yeah, this is all of our exterior accessories and things that we use. And yeah,
yeah.
Cut Junkie 420. Thank you, dude. Really appreciate it, man.
This is amazing, man. Fire. Look at all the fire signs are going up.
Hey, fire.
Yeah. But I just like I'm gonna touch bases with you again. Like I said, you right in my neck of the woods, so I'm gonna go and I want to actually get a cut. I want to get a beard lineup and everything. So I'm gonna hit you up for an appointment.
Oh, dude, I would love that. Anytime, dude.
Yeah,
Whenever you're ready, jump online and grab whatever appointment you want, and they'll be on me, man. Hook you
yeah.
up.
We gonna make it happen. This is not a one-time thing. If you got something else that you about to push out or whatever venture you have set up, I would love to have you come on my channel and talk about it. This is what Barber Talkie shit is about: the sharing information, sharing journey, sharing growth. And this was awesome. And you could have been anywhere in the world today, but you was here with me, and I appreciate
Wouldn't want to be anywhere else, bro.
it.
Appreciate you, my dude. Yeah, man. Have fun out there. And to all the viewers that watch this on the back end, man, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys even taking a second out of your lives to listen to my story. And yeah, rock
Rock
on.
on. All right, boss. Ronnie Rich.
Later, bro. Yee!